USCHO.com.
Welcome to USCHO Weekend Review for Monday, November 27th, 2023. I'm Ed Trefzger alongside Jim Connelly and Derek Schooley. Some great matchups over the weekend, probably the last really big weekend, except for a few around the holidays, of non-conference play. 11 great top 20 matchups over the weekend. One that wasn't a top 20 matchup we should mention also, and that was North Dakota getting an overtime win Friday and a 5-0 win on Saturday against Bemidji. Just a little bit of controversy in that overtime win as a player entered offside, clearly from everything showing it, and Bemidji chose not to challenge it, which really baffled me. Now, some folks out there in the social media world were saying, well, the referee should have looked at it, but no, that's not something they can initiate. Offside on a goal has to be initiated by a coach. But Derek, why wouldn't you take that? If you lose it, the game's over. If you win the challenge, you play on.
Yeah, and it happens. I mean, you think that you see something different, and maybe everybody was off before the video guy got it. There could be a lot of different reasons of why you wouldn't. But I will say this: it is irritating when you win an overtime game and you do have to stand there and wait. But that everybody does it. There's no if it's close, you challenge it. And I have not talked to Tom Serratori about it. He's a good friend of mine, and but I don't. I would say, and you said it right there, the new standard right now is they're not going to go look at things on their own anymore. You have to challenge it. They come over and you ask them a question. Do you think that was offsides? And the first thing they say is, do you want to challenge it? And you're trying to stall, you're trying to delay so you can hear from your video guy, and you stand there for a minute and go, are you sure? Blah, 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 blah. And next thing you know, you get the answer yes or no. You want to challenge it, and it'll be, nope, I want to play. And they know what you're doing, but they give you a little bit of time. But you should challenge everything now, especially if you think it's close on a game-winning goal.
Yeah, you just said it right there. There's no reason not to. And I believe every overtime game winner in last year's NCAA tournament, even though they clear goals in the NCAA tournament, we don't clear goals in the regular season. You don't have an official that's watching and making sure they're good. Every single one was still challenged by the losing coach, because why not? You know, as you say, there's nothing to lose. I don't love the delay that's caused. I've seen it in a few situations where it wasn't even close and a coach would challenge. But it's worth making the officials take a look. And in that case, it does look. I've only seen still frame views of it, but it does look like there was a potential that North Dakota was offside. Regardless, hey, the number one team didn't lose. Maybe the curse ended for at least a week, and North Dakota, I assume, will probably stay number one in most people's ballots. So hats off to North Dakota. You didn't lose as the number one team in the country. They did
lose PairWise percentages, though. But I will say this, and Mercier's always does it. Rick, and he'll challenge if it's 5 feet close. We beat him in overtime one year in Rochester. And I could, like, the guy wasn't even close, and they still challenged it. And it's irritating, but everybody's going to do it. And why not? It comes down to it. Expect it to happen more and more after this now. I guarantee you, because you do get that extra time out in overtime, every coach will, if it's even close, try to challenge it from here on out.
Well, number 2, Boston College racked up a lot of air miles. I looked it up, about 800 miles in the air from Logan to South Bend and back, as they beat number 18 Notre Dame, and then on Sunday beat Harvard. A good weekend for the Eagles. They probably won't overtake North Dakota, but I bet they'll get a few more first place votes after that strong weekend.
They're getting more consistent, a lot more consistent as this season goes on. And they're a strong team. I've talked about them before, and some of the freshmen on that team. I think they're getting to be a scary team. I mean, they routed Notre Dame. That wasn't even close. The Harvard game went into the third period close before they pulled away. But boy, they really, those were 2 statement victories for Boston College this weekend.
Yeah, it was. And you talked about air miles. And certain people, they'd be busing it. So I don't feel sorry for that. It's probably a charter too. So it was really probably the easier travel than anything you could imagine. But Boston College has got really consistent. They're killing it right now on the recruiting trail. They've got it turned around, and I don't, like you said, I don't think they're going to overtake North Dakota or be in that area, but that's a pretty good weekend for them, especially with all the travel and really, quite honestly, with some rivalry there. You've got the Catholic school rivalry, you got the Harvard Boston rivalry. That's a big statement weekend for them.
We didn't put it on our list, but I do want to drop in just quickly that number 4 Denver had a 5-0 and a 9-0 victory over visiting Yale. They just really stomped Yale in that weekend and just keep rolling. They're going to get some looks and continue to get looks for the top of the poll too. But then number 5 Boston University on Wednesday, they took down number 3 Quinnipiac, and very late in that game, a comeback for them. And then lost a close one to Cornell at Madison Square Garden. 4th time in a row that biennial contest that Cornell has won it. So they continue to hold on to the cup.
Yeah, the win before Thanksgiving over Quinnipiac, so impressive, being down 2-0 in that game and coming back to win it 3-2. You would have thought that would be all the momentum you'd need to go to MSG and play in front of a sold out crowd. And I didn't even realize it until afterwards. It was a Boston doubleheader that day. Boston Bruins had played a 1:00 game, and then the 8:00 game was the Cornell Harvard game. So I'm sorry, Cornell BU game. So fans could travel and see a lot of great hockey down there. Although if you're a BU fan, you saw 2 losses with the Bruins taking one on the chin as well. All that said, that's one that Cornell probably needed more than anything. BU obviously wants those wins. They need to start putting together a lot of great quality wins. But their resume looks fine. Cornell is the team that is trying to pump their legs to get back, and we'll talk about it more in the second half when we talk more about the PairWise and out of conference play. But Cornell is the team that needed that victory, so a big one for the Big Red.
Yeah, they did, and I watched the Wednesday game with Boston University, and Quinnipiac had that one, and all of a sudden, boom! Before you know it, the tables were turned, and BU was flying and come back from down 2-0. And I thought when it was 2-0, I thought that game was over. I thought it was a lock, and changed in a quick hurry. And like you said, Cornell really needed that one. They've got a tough schedule coming up. They've got Colgate this weekend, which is, you may say, oh, it's just Colgate. They're rebuilding, new coach, but that's always challenging. In the Finger Lakes region, that's always a good home and home with their location being so close. And they've got the big tournament in Lake Placid after that, where you've got UMass, you got Arizona State, you got Clarkson, and then to follow that up with Arizona State. So Cornell's got a little challenging next 6 games. It's a sneaky challenge. They could end up with Arizona State 3 times with that tournament, but within that, you've got UMass and Clarkson. So this is a tough little stretch. Cornell needed that one in a big way.
And those games with Arizona State could be huge for both of those teams when it comes to pairwise implications at the end of the season.
We keep talking about the pairwise already. We're getting in there. It's Christmas time. It's Christmas time, which means holiday season, which means more and more emphasis on the pairwise.
Well, it is Cyber Monday and it is computer stuff, so I think it's okay. Number 8, Michigan State, and number 9, Minnesota split the weekend on points. Michigan State won the shootout on Friday. The Gophers won in overtime on Sunday. So they each get 3 league points. There's a very slight advantage for the win at home versus a tie on the road for those 2 games. But anyway, Michigan State still holds on to a pretty big lead in the Big Ten, coming away with the 3 points, keeping pace. They've got 7 on the teams following them. They've got 9 on Minnesota right now, though the Gophers have got a couple in hand. But this told us a lot about both teams, really how good both of them are and how tight that league's going to be.
And how many goals we're going to see when we get into real Big Ten play in a consistent basis. I mean, that's a lot of goals that these teams put up. Obviously, it was a 6-5 overtime game on Sunday. I mean, it's just the goal scoring in that league is what's elite. I think as the leagues you look at it, it's more the defense. But in the Big Ten right now, it's goal scoring and it's wide open. And got to catch some of that Sunday game on BTN Plus, and it's just a wide open league, is what it is. They'll have some teams have a lot of success. And I don't know if we'll get to a first round of the NCAA tournament like last year, where I don't know what it was. They scored 40, 50 goals as a league in that round. I don't know if it's going to be that obtuse in terms of the way goal scoring can go, but they can score. All these teams get up and down the ice really well. And at the end of the weekend, Minnesota probably feels better because they sit there and they go, "Oh, we got a tie and a win." But you still only got a split in the league points. And that one, they probably feel the fact that they didn't gain any points against Michigan State.
Yeah, and I had a chance to watch that game too. And another one that when it went 5-3 with just under 9 minutes to go. You think Pitlick gets that goal where they challenge it. They did challenge it. There wasn't enough to overturn it on the ice, which I thought was the right call. And Michigan State comes back, and then you get the goal in the last minute. Larson gets the goal, and really a couple really good chances back and forth in overtime. And then Clark scored for Minnesota. But it looked like there wasn't, I didn't see the first game, but it looked like there wasn't a lot of separation between the two teams. They were going back and forth, and kudos to the play-by-play announcers. They talked about Nash Nienhuis, and he was dominant out there. That's a senior captain that's really having his best year in his last year. Big, strong, and scored a big-time shot to make it 5-4. But I'm looking at that. We got Minnesota after Christmas going, the tighter rink there. They look. It looks like a different Minnesota team without the big, huge sheet. They've cut it down from, I think it was from 100 feet to like just under 90 or just around 90 in that range. And things were happening quick in that game, and it was an exciting hockey game in between football games there.
Number 10, Providence, and number 13, Arizona State had a great series. Arizona State winning Friday in overtime, and Providence squeaking out a 2-1 decision on Sunday. You want to talk a little home cooking? Some interesting notes on this. Since they moved into Mullet Arena, Arizona State is 7-0 in overtime. And after the loss yesterday, they are 10-2 at home this season.
How many road games are they playing this year? Like 4? I mean, Ed, yeah, they're playing 10 games, and they've set this up for them. And obviously, they've got the home ice advantage. They've got it going really well there, and they've got a good team. Which I think of their road games, they're coming here once again. Our schedule maker hasn't done us any favors. We end it at right at Christmas time with Arizona, come back, and then we get to go for a second weekend after. So we're going to be seeing some of the top brass there pretty quickly. But what a good win that was for Arizona State. And that's going to go a long way in the PairWise, especially, you got to get that. You got to get some points, and Providence rebounded well. And I think Providence, and correct me if I'm wrong, we've always said I went to Western Michigan. I'm not a math major. Providence walks out of Tempe with more PairWise points there than Arizona State does, correct?
They do, because they get a regulation win on the road, and the loss was an overtime loss on the road. So they do, pull out the math on that weekend, and it becomes a really saved weekend. That could have been a lost weekend. And it's only a couple of weeks ago that I was on this show saying, I voted them Providence number 1. I'm saying they're going to lose 4 in a row after I vote them number 1 in the poll. But I thought that game on Sunday saved them, and they fell behind in that game again and found a way to win that game 2-1 on the road against a very good Arizona State team that doesn't lose at home, as Ed pointed out. I mean, that was a huge win for Nate Lehman. As much of a much needed win for him, and we'll get into the PairWise a little later for the conference for Hockey East. I feel like that was one that you're heading into Saturday saying, heading into Sunday saying, boy, we need this one.
I'm going to take the next part, and I'm going to put Ed in my spot, as I like to do that every once in a while, and kind of broaden my horizons since Ed saw these games in person. And New Hampshire salvages, pulls out a late heroics, great overtime too, exciting overtime and on the second game. But RIT takes the first one 5-4. What a good weekend you saw there in Rochester with RIT. Give me the scouting report on the Rochester Tigers after that weekend, Ed.
Well, gee, you're coming in to play them this weekend, so I'm not sure how much I can get away with saying and keep my job broadcasting for them. But
I couldn't pull a fast one on you there, could I? I'm trying to take over. I got a little segue going. I'm moving into it. Let's hear it. Let's give me the scoops.
Well, it was a good start on both nights for RIT. They came out both nights with 2-0 leads. Really played very well on Friday night, hung on to get that 5-4 win. On Saturday, they were up 2-0 in the first period, and a freshman who had been battling with a New Hampshire player during that shift, finally away from the play, takes a retaliation that's a contact to the head penalty, puts the Tigers down for 5 minutes. New Hampshire ties it up. A late power play goal on a tip-in puts RIT up 3-2, and then 5.3 seconds left. RIT unable to clear the zone. New Hampshire keeps it working, finds a man free in the slot for a goal with 5.3 seconds left to send it to overtime. And then in overtime, a blocked shot sprung the puck to a New Hampshire player who found a man who sped up the left wing. Cy Leclerc, and he went in and scored with 6.2 seconds left in overtime. So
I thought he was dead. When he blocked that shot, he was down. He wasn't getting up until he saw that he had a breakaway, and all of a sudden he was cured. I mean, he was down and he wasn't getting up. I thought they're going to score on a 3-on-2 because he can't get up. And then next thing you know, something else happens and he's sprung on a breakaway and he got rejuvenated. That was for sure.
So anybody that sees him in Hockey East all the time knows Cy Leclerc is dangerous, especially if you get him in alone. And I was having dinner that night after calling my own game and just happened to see it in the background. And somebody said, "Oh, I think UNH just won in overtime." I said, "I bet it was Leclerc." And then turned around and watched the replay, and there he is in a breakaway. The boy, you needed that point for New Hampshire. That OT win after losing, probably a tough game on Friday, falling behind 5-2 and then coming back and having opportunities to tie that game on Friday, then succeeding on Saturday had to feel good for Mike Souza and his club. But both of these teams, I'll tell you, I think we've talked a little bit about UNH being a team that nobody believed in, RIT, a team that's been in the top 20 now for a couple of weeks. To me, both of these teams prove that they belong where they are in the poll. I think that each of them will be right there come the end of the season.
Well, the big question is, will Ed talk to me this weekend? Will Ed be able to? I mean, we hang out, we do all of our stuff, Frozen 4. I haven't been a threat the last 2 years. Now, are you going to badmouth me on the broadcast too, like you used to?
Well, we'll see how you behave.
I'm too old to do it. I yell at the refs anymore. It doesn't work. It doesn't change their minds anyway.
I will tell you that the fan base at RIT is looking forward to having the Colonials back. So,
well, everybody's looking forward to having us right now.
One more in the top 20 was number 14 Michigan. They got a win and a tie versus number 17 St. Cloud State.
I like Michigan right now the way they're playing. They've had their hiccups this season, but that's a good weekend. I feel like St. Cloud has been playing some of their best hockey over the last month. So to take on the Huskies and come out with the win and the tie, it looks good for Michigan's resume certainly, but it's probably much needed too. It's kind of crazy when you think about Michigan as a team that is not at the top. When you're really talking about the Big Ten teams, they're darn good. They've had some issues of late, but that was a weekend they needed just to maybe right the ship and get things feeling better in that locker room.
Yeah, I mean, if you go down what they've been doing has been a little bit of a challenge. And Looks like Barshevsky comes away with the tie and a shutout. Looks like they've really kind of decided to go with him in net game after game. He's been playing, and it looks like he's won the Atlantic hockey battle with Noah West for that job. But as you said, they had been kind of an up and down. But when was the last time you saw Michigan lose 3 straight and then actually not win in 4? And then even when they tied, and then they won, they lost again. So if you go down their list, when have you seen loss, tie, win, loss for Michigan? It's been a while. So they really needed that. And to get a win and a tie on the road at St. Cloud's big, once again, everybody seems to be going into break after this weekend, and they play Notre Dame, and then they're off till January 6th. So that's a long time. And, I think that teams are trying to, they've got to, you never want to go into break feeling bad about your club. And they're going to feel a lot better than they would have if they wouldn't have got that win and a tie on the road.
Speaking of teams with some time off, I noted this in our Monday 10 column at USCHO this week. Providence has this coming weekend off. They have a game on December 9th at Boston College, a game at Brown on December 30th, the Mayor's Cup against Brown. And then their next games are home and home on the 12th and 13th of January against BC. So that's an awful lot of time off in there.
Yeah, it is. And you don't want that much. It really depends. Like, we could use my team after playing. We were in Alaska and then played 5 games in 8 days. We could use some time off right now, but we still have 6 games left. Some teams are playing this weekend and they're done. And they haven't had any breaks. And we're off from the 16th and don't come back and play till the 6th and 7th. But there's some times where breaks are well needed. And there's some times where you don't want breaks. And I would imagine Providence probably doesn't want this big of a break now. If they were struggling a little bit, it's welcome. But probably they want to keep playing right now a little bit. When you say, Jimmy, you know that team pretty well.
Well, yeah. I mean, after the tough weekend against UMass, then losing, if they had lost yesterday against Arizona State, I think it's different. Then you're 0-4 coming in, but now you feel your oats a little bit. You got a really good victory on the road, but now only 2 more games, only 1 more league game. It's strange. There's been some teams, especially in hockey, but I don't feel like you see that happen, but haven't played a ton of games right now. Maine only 10 games played to this point. A lot of these teams will end up with really packed second half schedules. And listen, if you're going to get on a heater in the second half, you might as well play a ton of games. Play 24 games in your second half, play 20 games in your second half. Because if you're going to be running hot, you want to run hot into the league tournament. You want to run hot into a regional, and you want to run hot to a Frozen Four. So, I get it why some coaches kind of space out their schedule a little bit more in the first half. I know, I don't know how you feel about it, Derek, but I never have known a coach that loves taking 21 to 30 days off around Christmas.
No, not at all. And I guess I just blame Steve Metcalf for that.
Well, somebody's got to take charge on the schedule, right?
Yeah, I mean, hey, he's the commissioner. He makes sure to tell us that he's in charge. So take the heat, Steve.
Well, you received a parting gift too from the former commissioner with your schedule. So we'll see how things work out under the new regime. But we're going to take a break and we'll come back and talk about non-conference fallout from the weekend and a little bit of the impact of the PairWise based on those results. And that's when USCHO Weekend Review continues. We're back with USCHO Weekend Review. Let's talk about the non-conference records from the weekend and the implications. The league that helped itself the most last weekend is Atlantic Hockey, 7-5 on the weekend and 6-1-0 on Friday. Some big wins there. One of them I'd like to highlight. We talked about RIT in New Hampshire, but how about Bentley? Andy Jones going up against his former employer. He was a longtime assistant and associate head coach at UMass Lowell and came away with a 4-1 win. You saw that game, Jim. What do you think of the Falcons this year?
I was really impressed by them, and it was, you could tell that was an emotional win for Jonesy, and he's one of those guys that is pretty hard on his sleeve, but he's quiet, so you have to kind of ask him. And he was asked after the game, he's like, "I'd be lying to say it didn't mean everything to me." But I look at this Bentley team. They almost took that was a tournament. They were in the Turkey Lake Classic. They almost took the tournament the next day when they went to Merrimack, had a 3-1 lead. And then, unfortunately for them, Merrimack got a little bit of a second and third period heater going and turned that game around to win the tournament. But Bentley, it looks as strong as they've looked in a number of years. They really look put together. They play a really strong system in the neutral zone, hard to get through the neutral zone. And then they're opportunistic. When I describe that team, I feel like I'm describing UMass Lowell, where Andy Jones coached for 8 years. And I asked him before the game, I said, "Is it the same system?" He said, "It's pretty much the same, but you'll notice some differences." And there's some subtle tweaks, but he really runs a very similar forecheck to what Lowell did. So when they got a lead on Lowell and they scored 2 goals in 12 seconds to take a 3-1 lead on Friday, you almost knew it was over, because Lowell runs a very good neutral zone, but they don't know how to break that same neutral zone when they have to play against it.
Yeah, and we've seen Bentley here, and Andy has done a good job. They play hard. They block a lot of shots. They play hard.
Tons of block shots.
But you know what? And I know that we're not at that point yet. But how about the big win for Army too? Army was well in need of a win, and Army goes and beats Lowell. That's a tough weekend for Lowell there. You lost 2 games that you were heavily favored. Obviously being Hockey East, and Army having starting out at what I think there were 2-10 going into that game against Lowell, and that's a big win for Army.
They were 0-9. They're 3-1 in their last 4 games, which is even more impressive. And talking with Brian Riley, they're finally coming of age. 20 freshmen and sophomore in the lineups. He said that they knew how to make freshman and sophomore mistakes, and they knew how to pile them up. They had a 2-0 lead at Merrimack on Friday, and then saw Merrimack score 6 in a row, and many of them quickly. I think it was 5 goals in 7 minutes. And I think Saturday for him, the win against Lowell was something that gave his team more confidence, because they feel, hey, we can close out a game now. We know how to do it. They had done that a week before against Canisius. They closed out a game, something they hadn't been able to do. And I think that's going to be a scary team in Atlantic hockey down the stretch. They're not going to make some national headlines, but they're going to scare a lot of teams and maybe play spoiler a ton down the stretch.
I want to ask one more question about Atlantic hockey, and that's one that was asked to me. This season marks the 4th season since the league got incrementally up to 18 scholarships, the full complement. Are we now seeing the results of that in the competitiveness of that league?
Competitiveness, yes. Results, I'm not sure. You're still, they're still at about 370 in winning percentage, maybe 368 or something like that. I don't have it right in front of me. But they're more competitive. And I'll tell you, these games that I saw, seeing both teams and talking to both coaches, you can see that there's more of a confidence. And one of the teams, Army, so scholarships didn't matter for Army. But I know Bentley, a new coach, more scholarships. This team feels more like a team that you're used to seeing in Division I hockey, not just somebody. I never enjoyed anybody saying an Atlantic hockey team and having that have a bad connotation to it. But until this league became one with the full complement of scholarships, they always have been a little bit behind. And that was just reality. So now I feel like the results will come, and they'll keep coming. You've still got to attract the best talent in schools. I know you're going through this, and you've gone through it before, and you've got to find the right players. If you get them, you're going to win.
Yeah, and the thing about it, I was so excited for a league to see that we're 6-1 on Friday. I mean, that's a mad. When was the last time you saw Atlantic hockey 6-1? That's a massive day.
I don't think you've ever had something like that before. There's no doubt.
But you look at it, and that just shows you the parity of college hockey. And we're a first-year program. We're struggling a little bit and going through our growing pains and figuring out things. And we'll get there. It's a process. I texted Rico Blasi about some things, and it's a process. And it took him a while to get to where they're at. But I will say this: we went to overtime. We were 4 seconds away from going to overtime, twice with Anchorage. And what did Anchorage go do this weekend? The weekend before, they had a tough weekend with Arizona State, and they go beat Wisconsin. So there's a lot of parity in college hockey. It's hard to win, like I keep saying.
The Big Ten, in fact, when we talk about the 3 leagues that are doing very well out of conference, kind of as a group to lead into the next part, and then we'll also get to the CCHA and ECAC. But Big Ten 6-2-1, Hockey East 9-5-1 on the weekend, and NCHC 9-2-1. They're all in the high 600s, nearly 700 out of conference. They are positioning themselves well for the PairWise, which we'll talk about in a moment. But a really good weekend for all those conferences, despite the blemishes on Hockey East from non-league play, especially on Friday.
Yeah, the rich got richer. And maybe Hockey East wasn't poised to get there, but as the weekend went on, things got better. And you look at the Providence victory, the Boston College victories on Sunday; those helped immensely. I think that the Big Ten going 6-2-1, and they had teams playing in their conference, that helps a ton. But the NCHC 9-2-1, you're talking about that's an .850 winning percentage. No, I just did my math wrong on that. It's maybe even better than an .850 winning percentage over that span. In 4-0-1 on Saturday. That's huge. You're going to see it. We're going to get to the PairWise next, and it provides so much strength to your league then, because the teams that are winning inside of your league, they then know that they can lean back and rest on the laurels of great out of conference play. And that if you can just have some success within your league, whichever teams get to the top of the standings in the league, they're almost locks for NCAA tournaments, unless they were the team that brought down your conference out of conference. But you're not seeing that anywhere. You're not seeing one team just play horrible out of conference in any of these leagues. The strength is there, and you can see the separation beginning already with these 3 conferences.
I don't really have anything to add on that, but other than the fact of some of those losses, when there is a loss, it will hurt a lot more than you think. And people are surviving right now at sometimes. They're winning overtime games or winning late. Those are big. I guess if you walk out of there as a coach, you go, "Woo, we really needed that." And you can't say you're tempting fate sometimes when you're continuing to survive those ones. And you saw Mercyhurst beat Miami the other day. Big win for Mercyhurst, but tough loss for the NCHC too.
Well, speaking of the other 2 leagues, CCHA 0-2 out of conference, and ECAC, now this is really hurting that league, 3-12-1 out of conference over the weekend. That league plus the CCHA and Atlantic Hockey, only 3rd decimal place separating them in out of conference record. So that doesn't put them in a very good place. But how much of the ECAC is still the Ivies getting over what happened with COVID and trying to get things back together?
I mean, yeah, probably a lot of it. Yale got, we talked about it. They got hammered by Denver this weekend. 14-0, they got outscored. I mean, like, that's not competitive. And that's the issue. Like, I mean, the CCHA only played 2 out of conference games this weekend. So that was a little hard to really get a measuring stick. And I didn't have enough time to really go in and see when they're going to play the bulk. They must have a big bulk around Christmas, New Year's, that they'll play a ton of non-conference games. But right now the ECAC is in such a hole. I was going to save this for when we talk pairwise, but if it wasn't for Quinnipiac, that conference would be by far the worst when it comes to the pairwise. And Quinnipiac, they have 4 losses: BC, UNH, Maine, and BU. Those become quality losses, and a couple of them came on the road. Their strength of schedule is number 3 in the country. Cornell is probably, I think they're the next strongest schedule in the ECAC. Their strength of schedule is 32. 32 out of 62. I mean, so I maybe missed the math there, but you're talking that every team in the ECAC has a bottom half of the country strength of schedule, and then you're losing games at a clip of more than 60%. I mean, this is the conference that had, it seemed like was the resurgent conference of the last 10, 15 years, when you had teams like Quinnipiac, Yale, Union winning national championships, Cornell being a dominant team, getting to regional finals year after year. I just feel like this conference has taken a big step backwards, and it's concerning. It's really concerning.
I'm more shocked than the CCHA. I know you're probably going to go there, Ed. So I won't jump you, but I'm more shocked at where the CCHA is right now. So I'll let you go into that one here, Ed. I mean, it's crazy right now.
Well, I was going to lead us right into the PairWise, since we sort of touched on it already with Jim. Really, it would only be one team in the tournament right now from ECAC, unless one of the other teams is the automatic qualifier. And this is a league where you're going to think, like you said, you think about Quinnipiac, you think about Harvard and Cornell as being in the mix. We've talked about Clarkson, that they're kind of looking on the outside and see what they can do this season. Colgate rebuilding a little bit with a new coach, but you're used to seeing, 2 or 3 teams from ECAC, and right now there'd be maybe one. While we're talking about the teams only getting one in, right now Atlantic Hockey and CCHA don't have any teams that would be within that. AIC just outside at number 17, and as they get into more of a league schedule, they'll be hurt a little bit by that, but maybe not as much as past years. In the CCHA, I think we were talking about this. St. Thomas is at number 30, but they're not eligible for the tournament. So the highest team is at number 37, really below the middle.
And that's where, we had this in Jimmy's show's notes about St. Thomas. I don't think it's really well known out there. And I had to do a little digging before my practice day to find out that St. Thomas, if they would have just went D1 in hockey only, they would be eligible. But their whole athletic department went Division 1, which puts them on that 5-year moratorium. And I think it's still 2 more years. If you even go a step farther, their next highest team in the CCHA at 36 is Augustana. So you've got 2 that are ineligible for the tournament this year. And one's not playing their league schedule, but still 36. From Minnesota State, 37. When have you seen that before, that those teams are that low? And Rico Blossi's done a fabulous job there. I've really got a lot of respect for what he's done there and got them up there that quickly. But where's the Michigan Techs? And they were picked high. When are they going to take a step up? I know Bemidji's played some teams close. I mean, this is a league that's like I said, best one is 30, and they're ineligible for the tournament.
And that team, St. Thomas, is the only team with a record in the CCHA above 500. Bemidji 5-9, Michigan Tech 6-6-3, Northern Michigan 6-7-1, Lake Superior 7-7-0, Minnesota State 5-6-1, Bowling Green 4-10-0, and Ferris State 4-7-1. I mean, this league's getting hammered out of conference, and inside their conference, they're all basically playing 500 hockey.
Although hats off to Michigan Tech for their first ever sweep on the road at Mankato this past weekend. Let's look at the top 3 leagues, though, right now by conference. Hockey East with 6 teams in. The PairWise, of course, some of these could get peeled off by auto bids in other conferences. Big Ten with 5 teams, although Michigan and Penn State are right on the bubble. And NCHC with 4 teams in right now. Before we talk about those, weren't we looking at about the same thing for Hockey East at this time in the schedule last year?
We were. It was before Thanksgiving. I believe they were in the same position where they had 6 teams in the tournament. And the week of Thanksgiving last year was a lost weekend, and then the 2 weeks out of Christmas were really bad weekends for Hockey East. They still are in a position that 2 weeks out of the Christmas break could hurt, but they survived with going 9-5-1 this past weekend. They survived. And those games, by the way, when I say 9-5-1, that was the weekend. So it doesn't include games that were played on Tuesday or Wednesday, which they had a couple of really good wins in there. The Boston College, the Boston University wins in there. So they've taken care of the first checkbox, which is the good weekend around Thanksgiving. Now the league has to take care of the other two, which will be right outside of Christmas. The first 2 weeks after Christmas. After that, it's a scattering of non-conference games. The Beanpot being a few of them, but that's Hockey East on Hockey East crime usually there because aside from Harvard, there's not a lot of wins you can get among out of conference. And so I feel like Hockey East, yes, they were in this position last year, but they probably have a little bit more solid footing. Plus, you have 3 teams in the top 5 of the PairWise right now, and 5 teams in the top 10. That's pretty impressive. And I think the 6th team is number 11. So they are not as close to the bubble as other conferences are. You mentioned Big Ten. Yes, 5 out of the 8 teams. 5 out of 7 would be in, but Penn State and Michigan technically would get knocked out because you have to put an Atlantic Hockey and a CCHA team in there. So that's getting to the pairwise math that we don't need to do really until March. But you look at those 3 teams, those 3 leagues, they just control. They've taken control of the NCAA ice hockey picture right now just because they have played so well out of their conference.
And you look at, you talked about Quinnipiac. Quinnipiac takes if they run the table, that's three teams right there. So only 13 would get in. You get the one ECAC, you get the one CCHA and the one Atlantic Hockey, and you're looking at potentially four NCHC teams too. That's the one thing we've kind of pumped up the Hockey East and Big Ten a little bit. NCHC is just cruising right along. We talked about North Dakota not losing. But you just briefly glanced at Denver hammering Yale, but they're just chugging right along, and they're going to see where things play out. But the one thing that kind of surprises me a little bit is how the independents have kind of fallen with the pairwise a little bit. You're looking at the top team at Arizona State at 20. They're going to have to make up some ground, and there's. It as well as I do. Once they start hitting that independent schedule, there's not a lot of ground to be made up. They need to start hitting it home on some of these big games that Arizona State has, and Fairbanks has to do as well. So I know that you guys said that you thought there would be an independent in this year. If that's going to happen, they're going to have to start making up some ground quickly.
The tough thing for Arizona State is all those games at home that count as 0.8 of a game. So those 10 wins count as 8 weighted wins, not counting quality win balance. So win bonus rather. So that affects them. So they definitely need to make hay when they are on the road.
If you look at the Division I Independence as a conference, back in early October, even into early parts of November, they had a win percentage in the 400s. I believe at one point they were in around 420. They've now dropped down to a win percentage as Division I Independents of 333. If they were their own conference, that would be the worst of the 7 conferences. They'd be below CCHA. They'd be below Atlantic Hockey. They'd be below the ECAC. So there's a ton more games for independents to play. But they do, as you kind of alluded to it, Derek, they end up playing each other a lot down the stretch. Because of that, if you don't have a team in position like in Arizona State by mid-January, it's going to be very difficult to move any of those independents into the top 16 of the pairwise.
And that's why I think for Arizona State, who's at 20, that Adirondack, they call it the Adirondack Winter Invitational, that's going to be huge for them. That's going to be huge because that's not even They're not even they're getting neutral site on
neutral
that
site
one.
wins.
They're not even getting full one. So I guess the next bigger ones are their trip to Pittsburgh here. But then you got Alaska, Anchorage. Those are their only road games left. So, I mean, you look, Colorado College this weekend, massive as far as that goes. And but you also don't, Fairbanks is still kind of lurking around there too. So it'll be interesting. You've got all these teams that right now have won. I guarantee you one of these other leagues, whether it's CCHA, whether it's DCAC, or whether it's Atlantic Hockey, they will have 2 teams in the tournament. That statement right now. You will not see those 3 leagues with just 1 team, each one of them in there.
I would bet my money on that as well. I think you're right about that.
And I think about 80% of that chance is ECAC.
Probably. Well, I'm just going to go back to Quinnipiac and their strength of schedule. Even if you're losing to them, you're actually improving your overall RPI. And if you're losing to them, on the road, or you're taking them to overtime on the road, you're picking up some points that are really quality points. So Quinnipiac, listen, they're dominating within the league. That's why they're sitting right up there in the top 3 of the PairWise. But at the same time, the teams like maybe it's Cornell or maybe it's Harvard or maybe it's Dartmouth, they're going to start making some hay here. And if they can pick up some really good league wins and pump themselves up in the league standing, it's the thing that ECAC wants to avoid the most is having Quinnipiac go undefeated, have a couple of teams really stink, and then have everybody else 500 in between. That would be what hurts this league. I'm talking about in-league play.
Well, there's a lot to be played, and we've been in for an extended chat today, so I think we'll wrap it up right here.
Whoa! Are you gonna talk this weekend? You never said if you were or you weren't.
Yes, of course I will.
Now you can.
And you know where to find me.
Now, you got one of the better press box meals up there, so I'll be right up there.
Anyway, for Jim Connelly, for Derek Schooley, I'm Ed Trefzger. This has been USCHO Weekend Review. We'll see you next time.